Hey guys, Pretzelman 945 here. Welcome back to the video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about Berserk. So as some people who watch this channel may know, I've mentioned it in a few different videos, but not that many. Berserk is my third favorite piece of fiction of all time, behind Star Wars and Attack on Titan. And it's also my favorite manga. Um, and there are plenty of aspects that have already been discussed to death about why Berserk is peak fiction, such as like Guts being one of the best protagonists of all time, his relationship with Griffith, Griffith being one of the best villains of all time, the action, the storytelling, the indirect world building, the um the art, just like random example. Um, all of this stuff has been discussed at length as to why Berserk is peak fiction. However, something that I feel like at least has not been discussed nearly enough as to why Berserk storytelling is so effective is, and this is in my opinion, especially after rereading The Eclipse, now that I have gotten my hands on some physical volumes, um, the most underrated aspect of Berserk, in my opinion, is the. Let me see if I can find a good, um, some good examples of it, so to speak. I gotta be careful with the panels that I choose to show here. Um, but you look at the bottom of the page there. Um, I'm just gonna hold up on screen a little bit longer because that wasn't a very long time. Look at the bottom of the page, you kind of see what I'm um, referring to. You can kind of see some other examples there of like the different monster designs and such. And like even more here, this is another really, really good panel of it. And then there's just this absolutely epic panel of the unveiling of the God Hand there, which is just fucking awesome. I love that panel. Um, Let me see if I can find some more examples here. Oh, here's a fantastic example. Look at all of those monster designs right there. That is just absolute beauty right there. So that's my main point. In my opinion, the most underrated aspect and least talked about that should be talked about more is the monster designs. Um, and does this kind of correlate into the armor? Yes, it does. And I will try my best to kind of make this a separate point as best I can, but um why I think the monster designs in Berserk are so fucking incredible is because in a world of fantasy, there is often especially like medieval fantasy, like Berserk, takes very, very heavy inspiration from, um, especially when it comes to depicting the world of Berserk and like the region of Midland and a lot of the villages in it and things like that. Um, uh, I feel like when it comes to high fantasy and things like this, we have these very clear images of the kinds of monsters that appear in our heads, and even when it comes to like the specific subtext of dark fantasy, I think that there is a lot of like ideas that you could associate with traditional Western fantasy, like dragons, um, trolls, kind of like things that you would think of in like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and other things like that. Even though those aren't necessarily as much as dark fantasy like the way that Berserk is, you would still kind of envision those kind of traditional ideas being within the realm of dark fantasy. But what is so genius about Berserk's monster designs, I feel, is that like at least this was my experience reading Berserk. I don't know if this was anyone else's. Please let me know in the comments if you felt like a similar experience to me when you had the if you experienced Berserk this way. I've always felt like what made the monster design of Berserk so effective, and hopefully you could kind of see with some of the examples, panels that I showed, is that it it feels like um not human. And obviously they're not human because they're all crazy monsters. But like what I mean is that they don't feel human in design. Like the kinds of insane concepts don't feel possible to have like contem to con like contemplate and accept in the human brain. There's another word that doesn't know what it is. Like they don't feel like things that you can like contemplate in your head and accept that they exist. And yet they are on the page, which means you kind of are your brain is kind of like forced into accepting that it actually exists. It's a very weird effect that happens, and it's hard to describe, and it's taken me quite a long time to figure out like how to put it into words. Otherwise, I probably would have made a video about this a lot sooner. But um, it create like I said, it creates this very strange effect where you don't really feel like it can exist, like it is possible to exist, and yet it is. It is physically on the page that you are seeing in front of you. Um, and why I think this works so well in terms of like helping Berserk storytelling is I think that the insanity of because that I think that is truly the only word for it. The pure and utter just insanity and um incredulous ridiculousness of some of these monster designs. Like it fits the tone so perfectly of like the eclipse and what it's going for. Like not even in the eclipse because obviously the eclipse. That's the main example I'm referencing, and that's why I have like volume 12 specifically from my slowly growing manga collection. Um, is that like um take for example an extremely instrumental character of the story, Nosferatu Zod. Like I can't even properly describe with words what he looks like. In an image of him, I can't even describe what he properly looks like. Um, he looks like a giant Cyclops mixed with a Satan design. It's honestly just incredible in terms of like it's like that weird effect on your brain where like you don't think it can be possible to exist, and yet Nosferatu Zon is right there on those damn pages. And why I think that this is so effective is that um obviously with the eclipse, um, that is a completely insane event that only happens every couple of centuries, which is meant to be like a world-ending disaster. So in that sense, I feel like kind of those insane monster designs that I kind of showed in panels of the eclipse are in a very slight sense, maybe possibly more believable due to the type of event the eclipse is portrayed to be, and also kind of the mass scale of it. Like for an example, like Nosferatu Zod, he appears in like what is the first volume of the Golden Age, or volume 4, I think. That's where he first appears, anyway, and like you don't even have words to really describe like what it is supposed to look like. Um, and and I think that this I'm kind of circling on my words a bit here, so apologies for that. Again, it is still a hard thing I feel like to voice into words, but um, I think I find it hard to explain just how well this suits the dark fantasy vibe that Berserk goes for, because I think that nothing kind of speaks more to the insane nature of the dark fantasy type that the dark fantasy genre that Berserk follows, and the insane things that happen in it, um, and just how dark it truly is, because I truly think it's the darkest piece of fiction I've ever consumed. Um, and just the way that the monster designs to me seems to complement that. I've always thought that it was just a work of absolute genius, and I think it is, in my opinion, the most underrated aspect of Berserk. And yeah, you could probably, like I said in the beginning, relate it to talks of how incredible the art is. But I really do think that the way the monsters are designed is kind of its own unique bubble, I guess, in terms of is even when you consider like an overall discussion of the art in Berserk, I think that that is kind of its own like little kind of small bubble within the larger umbrella of that discussion. And I think that that effect that I talked about, I think that like how incredible and insane the monster designs are in Berserk, just geniusly reflect the very, very dark storytelling and the atmosphere and the world building just so well. Um, but yeah, just a a quick little video of like a thought that I've had for a while. Um, and obviously, like I said in the beginning, there's a lot that you could talk about with Berserk as to explaining why it's peak fiction. I feel like this aspect in specific is the least thought about aspect in Berserk. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if your experience reading Berserk in terms of like trying to process the monster designs was the same as mine, because I'm quite curious to know. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.